All right, so U.S. warplanes finally took out some Iranian terrorists. Good. But is it going to really matter? Why not stop a ship? Why not sink a ship? What about bombing an oil field in Iran? That might get their attention. Joining us now, General Jack Keane, retired four-star general, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, Fox News senior strategic analyst, and a Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient. All right, General Keane, this is kind of an update. They look maybe a half a grade point bolder, but I don't know. We're not hurting Iran. These things are still kind of pinpricks. Yes, we killed some terrorists. We don't know who they are. I mean, it's up to you, General, but I think you need to do a whole lot more.
Well, I suspect so, too. I mean, this attack by the United States is different. It's focused on people, versus the weapons and the ammunition and the storage sites. But I think when the Iranians look at this, they're willing to trade a significant number of their proxies in terms of the objective they're attempting to achieve here. And, for our audience benefit, their strategic objective for 43 years has been to dominate and control the Middle East and also control the Persian Gulf flow of oil. And to do that, they need to push the United States military out of the Middle East, and that is what the pressure on our 13 bases is all about here. And they also need to destroy the state of Israel. This is something they talk about every single year. So the trade-off here, Larry, is there's people in the United States questioning why we still have troops in Iraq and Syria that seem to be vulnerable to being killed on these bases by the Iranians. That's exactly what Iran wants to hear. The second thing is we're sending a message, I think, by not stepping up here and stopping these attacks to our Arab partners and other allies in the region. The Iranians are certainly communicating this. Look, the United States can't protect its own troops. What makes you think they're going to be able to protect yours? So, yes, I mean, what I think we should do a comprehensive attack against the proxies, leaders, fighters, weapons, storage, infrastructure, etc.
Oil tank,
even
oil
likely,
fields.
Larry.
Oil fields.
Even after that.
Oil fields. General, I'm putting in my
likely
bid. I'm putting in my bid for oil fields. I mean it. I don't mean to interrupt, General. I don't mean to interrupt. You know I love you, respect you. You're my mentor.
Well, you're doing a pretty good job of it.
I know. I'm sorry, but I want to get it in. You know why I want to get it in? Because their source of money, Iran's money, for financing all these terrorists is oil. They're selling oil to China. We're going to talk about it in the next segment. Why not hit oil fields?
Well, I think if the point I'm trying to make is we have to go after the Iranians. We've had two American presidents who figured this out. Reagan, who suffered through the Marine barracks bombing, 2 embassies destroyed all in the same year. And he figured out a few years later, as the Iranians were shooting at our ships, interfering with the flow of Persian Gulf oil. Obviously, we were trying to escort that oil out of there. He attacked the IRGC bases and also an oil platform or two, to get to your point. The second thing is President Trump. After they were attacking, again, U.S. presence in the region, President Trump decided to go after the person that was ordering those attacks, and that is Qasem Soleimani, the head of the IRG, Quds Force. I think the United States is capable of selecting the targets once they make up their mind that they got to move towards Iran. If I was recommending it, I would stay in the chain of command of the IRGC that is supporting these proxies, and that is their training center in Iran, also their bases, as Reagan took on, and also their headquarters. But there are plenty of targets that are available to the United States. You have suggested a couple of them as well. The real decision and the issue is the unwillingness to deal with Iran because of fear that would provoke a direct conflict and a war with the Iranians. 43 years of history with the Iranians tells you that is not the case. The whole issue of having proxies is to avoid that. Iran does not want a war with the United States directly. Would they respond if we attacked them significantly, like President Trump did or like Reagan did? Likely. But it also stopped de-escalation after that.
Right.
And that's exactly what is needed here.
I was in both of those administrations. I will never interrupt you again, General Keane. Never, ever. I apologize. I will not interrupt you. No more. Please forgive me. Please forgive me.
I'm not going to hold you to that.
General Jack Keane, we appreciate your thoughtfulness every time. Thanks for coming back on the show.